everyone.
Hello.
We have a couple of interesting polls going on. Well, first of all, hello and welcome to 24 Hours of UX, everyone. We are your non-stop community-based UX conference. It's non-stop because the conference brings you knowledge for 24 full hours. We're at hour number 11, by the way. It's community-based because the speakers are not selected by a central committee, rather than proposed and hosted by a different UX community from somewhere in the world each hour. We use this approach because we believe in the importance of local UX practitioner communities, and we believe that UX should be just as much local as it is global. We have groups from New Zealand, Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. So again, we are at hour 11. So that means we still have another half of the day still coming up. During the day, we have over 20 talks in 2 different tracks. UX and practice and elevating UX. So the first track is more practical and the second track is more strategic. I'm not sure which one we're in right now, but I think we're a little bit of both. There's also 6 keynotes and 8 workshops, so you will definitely not be bored. There's so much going on. The group bringing you UX wisdom this hour is World Information Architecture Day, or World IA Day. So hi everyone, I'm going to hand over the mic to you in just a few seconds. But first, a quick word on how the audience, how you as attendees can interact with the speakers and the host. So I think I mentioned in the right tab over here, there's conversations, and then you can see people in the session. There's chats, QA, polls, raise hands. Not raise hands, I guess you won't see that. So you can send messages and thoughts on the chat on the right. You can also ask to vote on questions in the chat, in the talk as well. So you have to look in the Q&A tab on the right. If you want to be invited on stage for a question during the Q&A discussions, you can raise your hand along the bottom, and then we'll be able to pull you up on stage. If you are on stage, don't lower your hand because then you will disappear from the stage. You can also turn on subtitles by clicking on the CC at the bottom icon. And then without any further ado, let me disappear from stage. Do we have everyone here? I think we're missing Andrew, right? Okay. I'll just disappear from stage and then hand it over to the panel.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Let me share my screen. A second. Okay, here. 1 second, it's loading. But in the meantime, welcome to our attendees to this panel about curiosity and information architecture. My name is Luis Alveart. I'm a UX designer and technical manager at Revamping, a software and information technology consulting company. I'm located in Colombia, and I'll be your host today. We are all excited about being here with our international speakers and sharing our knowledge and points of view from different parts of the world. So this panel is brought to you, as Grace mentioned, thanks to the World IA Day organization. We host a non-profit global conference curated and organized by volunteers worldwide. And we provide the foundation for learning about information architecture and understanding how information is structured and understood. We hosted this year the global event in February, and this year's topic was curiosity. And we had Cassini this year on the main stage with a talk titled Designing Curiosity. And that talk teaches us ways to provoke curiosity, how to be and remain curious, and how to invite others to be. He's actually giving an updated version here at 24 Hours of UX. So please check the schedule and stay tuned if you want to hear from him and learn from him. What else? I think that, I want to say to all our attendees, as Grace mentioned, that you can use the Q&A tab on the right-hand side panel, just if you have any questions, and you can vote for the ones that you want to be answered on the session. We will try to cover those questions during or at the end of the session. Okay, so I think we are all set. So let me now introduce our international speakers. So please, speakers, share with us your name, your location, a description of your role, and please let's answer the following questions so we can ignite the conversation. What does curiosity mean to you? I will start with Ghada. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Ghada from Egypt, Cairo, Egypt. I like to title myself as a content strategist, and I like to operate at the intersection of disciplines and silos to create integrated, user-centered strategy and solve problems and
Okay, I think we lost Ghada. Okay, so in the meantime, please, let's continue with Hertje. Welcome to our panel.
Hi, I'm Hertje. I'm based in Berlin, in Germany. I'm particularly nervous because I just detected my brother showed up in the sidebar, so that's the first. It's a family affair now. I'm extra nervous. I currently co-lead. Do you want to take over?
The regional director for Middle East and Africa. What is curiosity for? Curiosity is categorized under the group of emotions. It can be grouped with words that have bad connotation when you are interfering in other people's businesses and you are warned that curiosity kills the cat. On the other group of words of good connotation, curiosity is a catalyst to enhance the elements of surprise, inquisitiveness, and desire to learn. In Arabic, curiosity is being translated into two words, حب الاستطلاع, which is love to know and learn, and فضول, which is love to give. That's my definition for curiosity, which is very much related to information architecture.
Thank you, Ghada.
Thank you.
So let's go back to Hertje. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I'm glad we got Ghada back. So glad to hear about that. So I currently work as a co-lead. As a design manager at Zalando, so that's one of the bigger European fashion e-commerce shops on the B2B side, which has a lot of complexity, where love for AA is definitely helpful. So what does curiosity mean for me? I mean, I take in a lot of information, and not all of it work-related. I'm not particularly methodical, just all over the place, but what I love is when this curiosity takes me to places where I can start reconnecting the dots, sort of seemingly separate things, bring them back together.
Awesome. Thank you, Hertje. So let's continue with Souvik.
Hi, hello everyone. Thanks, Luis. So I am Souvik. I am the co-founder of a small strategic web design and development studio based out of New Delhi. It's called Miranj. My background is in software development, but nowadays, as a part of a co-founder of a web studio, my primary role is to do web strategy, site architectures for websites that we take up. I'm also the WIAD local organizer in my city of New Delhi in India. What does curiosity mean to me? To me, curiosity is it's a journey. It's a journey where when you're presented things you don't accept as just as is. You sometimes question. You sometimes simply wonder. There is unlearning, there's relearning, and you continue doing that until it all starts making sense. So mostly curiosity is a journey as well as a state of being where you're going through such explorations and arriving at answers.
Awesome. I like what you said about the journey. Very interesting. Thank you. So let's continue with Andrew.
Hi, I'm Andrew Jung. I'm here in Alberta, Canada, and I'm also the Director for Community and Events for World IA Day. I helped out Grace for this year's World IA Day with as global executive producer, and the year before with the IA element as well. I've been involved with World IA Day since probably about 2017 or 15. I don't know, years are slipping by, but it's always been a joy and a blast to be able to hang out and inspire others to learn about information architecture and all that goes with it. I was thinking about what curiosity means to me, and for me, it's kind of interesting. My kid has been asking me for a game for a long time, and we got it for him, and we've been playing it together a lot. And I don't know if you recognize this, but curiosity is like it, for me. It's kind of like Minecraft. It's in discovering those nuggets of information, and also in the game, there's all those things that go around with it. There's those things that you need to watch out and to be paying attention with. Do you keep dig? I was told by my son one of the first rules is don't dig straight down. And and watch out, where you're digging and stuff like that, and always be cognizant of what you're collecting. You can only collect so much, you can only take in so much, and you got to be careful about how far you get away from what you're really looking for. So there's always that one more thing, and you have to be careful about going down that rabbit hole. And so and sometimes it's a hole that's very, very deep. And so it's all about discovering those things, those new discoveries, and trying to figure out how we can use it, and what kinds of things can we use these pieces for, and everything else, and bringing it together. So that's what is exciting for curiosity for me, and being able to inspire others to be able to have that desire to want to build and discover and all that kind of stuff that goes with it.
Thank you, Andrew. Let's continue with Jason.
Thank you, Luis. Hello, everyone. I'm Jason, and I'm currently based in Cebu City, Philippines. I'm currently a technical writer with Kyocera Document Solutions Development Philippines Incorporated, and I've been involved with World IA Day. This is my second year with World IA Day. I was privileged to be one of the speakers of the first two previous local World IA Day events. Curiosity for me is an enabler. So it enables me to connect my role, my tasks, my responsibilities to create user-facing content to the end users. It gives my role the value that it can provide to the end users.
Awesome. Thank you, Jason. So let's continue with this topic, curiosity. And one of the goals of this panel is to get those insights and point of view from different parts of the world. So I would like to ask you, in which ways does curiosity empower you to enhance your projects and get better results? Who would like to start?
I can start.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Just to go back in the memory lane, it's been about 10 years since I started this web studio, and in the early days when we would take up a web project, the first question we would ask, what will the sitemap be? How many pages do you want, and things like that. The usual questions, and that's the question that you always start off with. But as we evolved as an organization, we realized, and we also evolved in our craft as well. We realized that these things, sitemaps, navigation, page structures, and all these are like the solution of what the final website will be. They are the decisions that are taken in how the final website comes out to be. But what we need to do to get better is to focus on the problem side of things, to explore more of the problem space. And that's what in the last 4-5 years, we have started doing strategy workshops with clients, where we give a far greater emphasis to the problem, understanding the problem, exploring the problem, than discussing the solution. In fact, I would say significantly more time is given to the discussing problems than discussing the solution. And that's one way in which curiosity has come in our project execution, and it has definitely helped us understand things better, come up with better decisions, better solutions, and more impactful ones as well. So I think that's one side among, I guess, many other sides where curiosity has empowered us to do better in our projects.
Awesome. Thank you, Souvik. Who wants to continue? Any other points of view?
Well, I think that, curiosity is very important to be able continue on to inspire that in others in your team and cross-border. And a lot of times, you're working on something and, the teams, and especially cross-functional teams, they don't always see eye to eye, or they don't understand where you're going with something. And if you're able to inspire a sense of curiosity and being able to say, hey, and to get them excited about it, like, hey, if we do this, or if we sort of explain this, then maybe we can do that, and those kinds of things. And I think that's is very, there's kind of a way to make sure that we can carry a project forward and to be able to get that going. Yeah.
Awesome. Do you share that point of view, Hertje? How things are going in Europe? What do you think about it?
Yeah, sure. I think curiosity also has a lot to do with the people we're designing for. I think if we weren't curious about them and their lives, I don't think we would be able to empathize. So I think that also plays a huge role in how we think about the people using what we're building, about the people we're building this with, just sort of better understanding the different contexts. I think that is a super valuable thing that curiosity helps with as well.
Awesome. Thank you. I would like to continue the discussion asking you how the industry that you work on triggers or kill curiosity, and in which ways do you think curiosity should be triggered? Who wants to throw some opinions? Okay, Jason, please go ahead.
So in my role in particular as a technical writer, the main trigger for curiosity is what our perceived needs of our end users are. So if there's a new software feature, if there's a new application feature, how can we translate that into user-facing content? And that for me is the immediate trigger for curiosity. One interesting point that I talked about this year, I focused on personas, and in technical writing, we need to be clear on who really reads our content. Are they office workers? Are they home users? Are they high corporate clients? So it matters how you translate technical information into those segmented user content, and that was the main point of my persona discussion.
Thank you. Very interesting, Jason. Anyone else? Andrew?
Well, no, you said my name, so
okay.
Yeah, I think that things that can kill or a curiosity, I think it's also it's an opportunity. Like you have your process or your thing that you're presenting, and the VP says, I don't get it, or and it's suddenly there's a silence in the room. But I think that turning the possibility of the curiosity being killed, you can turn that around and use your own curiosity sort of to dig in and to figure out, like, okay, well, why is this person having this roadblock? What is their fears? What is their misunderstanding, or maybe they're seeing something that you are not quite understanding. So it's opportunity for you and the rest of the team to sort of dig in and to explore something that perhaps you have not really sort of observed in some of your other testing.
Got it. Thank you, Andrew. Souvik, could you go next?
Yeah, sure. So in my industry where I come from, people who are building websites, doing code, and everything around it, there's a lot of focus on tools, on frameworks, on the big tech companies. What are they doing? There's always some form of excitement around what is the latest JavaScript framework, what is the latest CMS that's out there, and that often drives the conversation. I believe there's a far greater glorification of the end outcome, and far greater focus on what is the solution that is being offered by different thinkers and creators, than the act of understanding the problem in a way. So I feel that can kind of inhibit curiosity, because you will take that as a solution that you have to take in your project, and you just slap it onto your project and it'll just work. And instead of that, if I know there's one word that is very common, it's problem solvers in a way, that's common, but if I would just change that to say problem understanders in a way, if there's more glorification for them, people who are able to dissect the problem, people who are able to understand that problem rather than just focusing on the solution, I think that can be a great way to trigger curiosity and ask questions.
Okay, thank you, Souvik. Ghada, do you have any particularity in Africa that you would like to share with us about this?
Let's say that people here are curious.
We can hear you, Ghada. Okay,
can you hear me now? Okay. Let's say that people are really curious here about the UX design industry and how they are implementing it with people who are a little bit different in everything. In Cairo, let's say, we are very cosmopolitan, but in the suburbs and in the villages, where there is a lot of people who don't read and write, getting in touch with them and knowing what they want, it is very curious how you are going to implement this and do it. And people are very curious. Why are you doing this? They don't understand the concept. They started to understand it more when, with the pandemic, when everyone resorted or was forced to use technology, use the internet, and he gets frustrated because, let's say, he is out of town and he doesn't have good internet connection. Why there are so many pictures and buttons that it does not upload? So he is frustrated to use it, and he doesn't know how to get around looking for the info that he wants. This is really was very much highlighted during the last 2 years. So everyone is curious about digital transformation right now. It's very curious how you are going to implement it with different educational levels.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Ghada. We have a question on the Q&A section. It goes for Souvik, but I think that everyone can add to this answer. So Andrea is asking, how do you sell this to your clients? I mean, selling understanding the problem rather than solving it.
I guess when you take clients through what your process is going to look like, what your journey is going to look like, and if you ask the right questions to the clients, where sometimes the clients themselves are unable to answer. I mean, just sometimes simply just ask why. Why do you want a website? And you could have just gone for a brochure and a flyer, and you would have done as well as having a website. So I think posing a question that the client or the person who wants a solution or who wants an answer doesn't know the answer to automatically triggers them to also participate in that journey of understanding. I think that is one way I can say it can be sold to the clients, and I would love to hear others' points of view on that.
Thank you, Souvik. Anyone else would like to add something to that question from the audience? How do you solving the problem? Sorry, understanding the problem rather than solving it. How do you, actually we can connect that with another question. How do you trigger or how do you treat curiosity about information architecture per se and other project stakeholders? How do you keep, your stakeholders interested in this topic and the relevance of this in the project? Okay, Hertje, please continue and then go with the
Sure, thanks. Yeah, I think it's a bit tricky, right? Information architecture can sound a bit dry. A few years ago, I always felt like a dinosaur when I even said something like sitemap or user flows. So I'm super happy to sort of seeing them have a big return. And I do think that sort of framing information architecture as something that will benefit in the future, I think that works. So it's not one of these things that you suggest as a quick fix. At the moment, for example, in our team, one of the colleagues is revamping the information architecture of what we're building, and that is the reason behind that is that we simply wouldn't be scalable for, if we kept the old information architecture. So finding the argument to connect this back with and saying, if you want to stick 20 more things in the main navigation, go ahead, but that's not going to be particularly useful. And then once you talk about scaling, then you need to ask questions, well, where are we actually going? What are we scaling for? Where are we scaling to? And that sort of triggers, I think, a lot of questions from other people then in turn, and makes them understand that this might be something useful to think about. I do think sort of IA can be the stepchild of a process. It's like there and everyone works with it, but it feels like once you have the framework, everyone just wants to move on and build the actual elements, components, but you have to do a little bit of weeding once in a while or just completely revamp that.
I agree on that. Thank you, Hertje. Jason, please continue.
Yes, I'd like to stick to the understanding the problem portion of this item that we're talking about now. So for me, information architecture helps us in our industry, in our company, to have an end-to-end connection, connecting what we do and connecting what our users really need. So we also need to help the business understand why we are delivering such content. It helps the business understand the internal value of our deliverables and the external value, the perceived value to our customers. So that's how information architecture gives us the curiosity that is needed to have an end-to-end understanding.
Awesome. Thank you. You're talking about also about like processes and deliverables. So I would like to know from your point of view how information architecture is shaping the way you approach your projects and ventures. Which particularities is information architecture adding to your current projects?
So, well, we do not necessarily currently we do not employ a formal information architecture role in what we
Okay.
do. That's also one of the frustrations that maybe I have in my part of the world. Information architecture needs a bit more exposure here. But what I do is basically putting things together. So I consider that as information architecture. At the very onset of the project, as simple as a mind map, um,
Mm-hmm.
that's what comes into mind. As simple as a mind map, as simple as understanding the whys, the whats, what do our customers need at the start of the project? How can we make this project intrinsically and externally valuable? So it continues on. The information architecture, putting things together, does not stop with the planning, but it goes on to the actual content creation. So
Thank you, Jason. Anyone else have any particularity in their countries or regions about how information architecture is shaping your projects or the way you approach your project? Yeah, Souvik?
Okay, a short answer that I can give to this is one part is to do and not to take these information structures as a given, and to actually actively work on the IA itself, but and make sense of the project, of the problem, of whatever work you're doing. In my case, it ends up being a website. But another aspect of information architecture, I think, is to achieve collective sense making, in the sense that it's not enough to say that, okay, I've understood the thing. It's also as much important to be able to put down your idea in a way that is easily be understandable by everyone else and agree, and they are in agreement to it. So if the foundations of IA is clear, if even these the mind maps and the diagrams, the things that Jason just talked about, are something that can be very good tools that come in from the space of information architecture, but really achieve in making sure that you can bring an entire team or your users or your clients and everyone else on the same page, and achieve a collective understanding of things.
Thank you, Souvik. Hertje, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how, it's like the one question, of course, is how does IA shape how I think? But I was also wondering, how does how I think shape my IA when I work on it? Like, if you look at my kitchen cabinets, you will see that, things are labeled and structured and clustered. I have a lot of different types of flowers. So I geek out over that. And I'm wondering, I would probably even do that. I would probably do that even if I wasn't, if I hadn't worked in sort of an information architecture space. So I also think it's quite interesting how you might have a certain inclination to do things a certain way, structure them a certain way, depending on how you grew up, where you grew up. So I think with me, it becomes this pervasive thing that isn't just related to work, but also impacts other areas, how I communicate, how I structure the life around me.
Thank you, Hertje. Ghada, would you like to add something?
Since Souvik and Hertje mentioned that IA is beyond the design and the structure, yes, it is involved. It's a mental process where you use your skills to understand in general, classify and group to make it easier to find. Even if you are talking about projects, it is not only product designers who are using information architectures. Project managers are using information architecture, or should use information architecture and learn its skills to know how to deal and group their stakeholders, to know how to structure and understand, to design correct processes and to that is effective to their projects, not only the generic processes that are in the project management instructions or guides. Information architecture will connect you when you are doing research. If you are doing research, you need the user researcher and you need the information architect to design this research. You need to how to classify the results that you are having. You need to know the profiles of your stakeholders and how, if you are managing different categories of stakeholders with different personalities and different profiles, information architecture will help you how to deal with them through structuring and grouping and doing a profile for everyone. So I think information architecture is not limited to structure and design in digital product, but it is much more in different aspects of life.
Thank you, Ghada, for your words. Jason, would you like to add something to the discussion? Yes, please, go ahead.
It's interesting that you mentioned information architecture being a mental thing, and it helps us deal with the differences. One thing that comes to mind is in my current role and in my past role, we need to deal with people from different countries, different cultures, different regions. One specific example that I can take is how I communicate ideas, thoughts, project stuff, and whatnot to an American. I would need a different dealing. I need to treat it differently when I would communicate it to a Japanese. And it gives me the benefit of understanding how those cultures accept information differently, and it gives me the opportunity to somehow find that sweet spot, if you may, because sometimes ideas clash between different cultures. Acceptance may not be immediate and may not be apparent. So there must be a meeting of minds, especially when we discuss how to group stuff, how to structure stuff. It may be different for Hertje, it may be different for Souvik or Ghada. So for me, understanding different mental states, different cultural acceptances is also important when we deal with information architecture.
Thank you, Jason. So before moving on with our next question, I would like to throw this question from Julius from the audience. He's asking, what do you think are the differences when talking about information architecture for software with complex workflows? Do you have the opportunity to work in software design? Any thoughts about that? Is there any difference in that particular context? Go ahead, Hertje.
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. I do think information architecture can be super useful in that context, but it can also be limitations. So I think it's useful because it allows us to think very structurally, but then sometimes, of course, in information architecture, I think at least the way I practiced it maybe in earlier days was always, we have a sitemap and there's this finite thing, and then I have a hierarchy here and a taxonomy there, but it's very finite and it's contained. And I think a lot of the complex systems aren't contained. They're huge systems, they're dependencies, they're interconnected. So your information architecture skills may actually reach a limit at some point, or may no longer be sufficient to describe these structures. That being said, I think the way of thinking about information architecture, I think that can be really useful. But I do think it's also useful for complex systems sort of move more towards a bit of systems thinking, if that makes sense. I don't know if that answers the question, but I think there's definitely this gateway from IA to systems thinking that I see in the context of complex projects.
Thank you, Hertje. So since we're talking about the ways we approach our projects, I would like to understand from your particular perspective, how do you understand, or what's the relationship between IA and UX? And if there's any difference, depending on the region, or how do you understand that relationship? How do you approach your projects considering, the whole picture? Who wants to add thoughts around that? Souvik? Yeah.
Okay. In fact, this is a question that as a World IA organizer is something that I have to often clarify, and it's a very common question. In fact, there is always IA, there is UX, and there is design. And if I look at, and I'm sure these terms will be understood differently in different geographies. And if I'm to speak about the things that I observe around me, the most mature of all these terms in terms of people's understanding is the word design. It's there in several different branches. There are several different things, and one of them turns out to be UX design. So that has become already a niche within design. And UX has become kind of a mainstream now in the industry around me. The word UX, and I think if I think of a journey of these terms, like when you think that there are conferences on a particular topic, that means that means the people are slowly organizing into community. When suddenly startups start picking up these terms, then you know that it's getting popular, right? And when universities start offering courses, it's become mainstream, basically. So within that space, I think UX has become mainstream, but information architecture is quite niche as itself today. Like even in the universities around my geography, you might have some course on information and interface design, which is broadly in the UX territory, and you might have a tiny sliver of information architecture being explained within that. And I think a lot of IA right now happens accidentally as a side effect of UX, as a side effect of another activity, rather than deliberately as an IA exercise. That is my understanding of this term. UX being a subset of design, IA being a very niche, but today very few roles doing dedicated IA.
Thank you. That's interesting, Souvik, that you had the opportunity to clarify that, and that's a common question actually here in Latin America. So I understand what you're saying. Any other thoughts about that topic, the relationship between UX, IA, design? How do you understand that, and how do you use to run your projects? Okay, so there's another question in the Q&A panel, section. So Dorothy's asking, maybe that's related with the previous question, and she's asking, is there any example of use case and type of methodologies you use before creating the information architecture? So what are like the early stages, before you define information architecture for your projects? How do you, maybe run some research, or how do you start like the envisioning of your product or your service? Somebody will ask to share, how do you tackle that on your projects? Souvik? Yeah.
Okay. The short answer to this is there are two parts that we focus on a lot. One is the audience, understanding the audience, the users, the consumer of whatever product you're creating. Break them down, create personas, profile them, understand what are their motivations, their purpose, their understanding, their solutions, their challenges, and so on and so forth. That's one aspect that goes in. The other aspect that goes in is that whenever we are looking at different types of information, try to break it down into smaller pieces, so that we know what the entire system looks like and what are the constituent parts look like, and then do the sense making out of that. Because the moment you put in any label to any piece of information, that label is open to interpretation in different ways by different people. And the moment you try to break it down and tell that these are the constituent parts of that, that's when you start creating a better structure in a way. So I believe I'm probably not answering methodologies that per se, but definitely saying that these are the two exercises definitely that we try to do before we arrive at a final IA.
Thank you, Souvik. Ghada, before continuing with Jason, Ghada, do you have any thoughts on that?
In reply to, is there any example of use cases and type of methodologies? I think there are a number of use cases that have been presented to show the success of using IA. Also, I would advise that she uses the heuristics of IA. So she understands findability, the audience, the navigation, the structure, all the 10 heuristics of IA that are being done by Abby Covert. These could be your starting, let's say, guidelines in order to understand the different types of involvement of IA in the product you are designing, for example.
Thank you, Ghada. Jason, what about you?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Dorothy. One simple use case that I can share to you in my technical writing role is defining user personas. I think Souvik touched about this earlier. But for my case, a specific example would be is the document that I'm creating for a software coder, software engineer, is my document for the end user of the software, is my document for the for the IT administrator, or and so on and so forth. So it's basically the use case of defining who the end user is with personas. That's the use case that I can share with you, Dorothy.
Thank you, Jason. So I would like to add one more question and try to combine two different questions I have for you. And since we are discussing like different ways in which we are approaching our projects and the relationship with other disciplines, I would like to understand how do you think or in which ways information architecture should be related with topics like content strategy, digital transformation, for example, instructional design and accessibility. So what opportunities are out there just to combine information architecture with different types of projects? And considering that, what do you think is the future of information architecture? What should we expect from information architecture, and how can we use it for the upcoming times? Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
So for me, I think I'll take that selectively. In my role, I see information architecture as a good tool for us to transform content as we go through the fast-paced digital transformations. One specific example is a simple PDF guide. The way we structure information in a PDF would be different from the way we structure content for web help, for example. In a PDF, it's arranged in a chronological order, if you may. However, for a web help, information would be arranged depending on what would be immediately useful to the user at a certain case. It may sound vague, but in my current deliverables, we really see a difference in how we put information together in a certain format that we deliver to the users. So for me, information architecture can bring us through those different digitalizations that the users or the times require of us. So it's as simple as when a user receives a PDF versus a user receives something on a website. how can we present information differently, transitioning from how it is presented in a computer, in a laptop, versus how users look for things in a mobile device, a phone or a tablet. So information architecture can help us transcend those differences.
Thank you, Jason. Is there any other thought about what's the future and how we can relate with different topics and different disciplines as well? Could be interesting to understand that. Andrew, would you like to add something, Souvik?
I'll just make a small point over here, just wrapping the things up. I think IA is a part of most disciplines. So if you're talking about content strategy, digital transformation, instructional design, accessibility, IA facilitates most of them. It's kind of your larger work that you're doing might be thinking of an entire building, and IA are the pillars that are supporting it. There is always a possibility of taking a deep look into the IA aspect in any area, which is as a facilitator, as an enabler for all these disciplines. And I think the future of IA it's very required because of the ever-growing digital information age where we are in today, and the complexity all of us are navigating with right now. And it's only, I guess, more a matter of time when it becomes more of like a very robust discipline, which is adopted by everyone around us.
Thank you, Souvik. So I think we're running out of time. So I would like to thank you all for being here. It was such an exciting conversation. I'm glad we covered different aspects for information architecture and different touch points with other disciplines. It was so interesting to see how things are going in different parts of the world, in different countries. So I would like to close in this panel announcing the next WIAD Day theme for 2022. So that will be held on March the 5th. And the topic is a connected world, finding new ways to connect. So we will be sharing more information about it in the upcoming weeks. So you can check our official website. You can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can contact us if you're willing to organize a local event in your city, if you want to host an event. And you can also raise your hand to volunteer, because we need people for the logistics and the organization of the global event. And look for more information about WIAD Day in our booth. So you just need to go to the main menu in this platform, and you can search for our booth and find key links and more information about what we do and what's coming. Thank you again to all our attendees and our speakers. Thanks for your time. And let's meet next year with more exciting and insightful discussions. And thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Of course, there is a keynote happening in a few minutes. I think it's 6 minutes, top of the hour with Jamie Levy. Of course, if you want to stay on, we can continue the conversations here. We do have a booth. WIAD does have a booth. If you go to tab, schedule, then booth, there's a way you can check out all the other sponsors and community partners that are working with 24 hours of UX. So you can definitely continue there, check out what we have going on. We have so many links regarding the state of IA, what's going on next year, our theme for next year.
We have a Discord.
And we have a Discord. So like if you don't have any more places to learn about information architecture, we're trying to make sure that, we spread a lot more. Yeah, meanwhile, I think there's like more Q&A stuff going on too.
Let me check.
But if anyone wants to go to keynote, you're free to go. We can continue it here. I think we did kind of like start getting a little bit of a...
I think Vinay has a question.
Okay, let me check. Okay, so The question is creating an information architecture for a product suite for a trade show versus IA for your product release. How can we make it interesting for the trade show audience who is looking for only interesting features? I like that question. So who wants to answer that to Vinny? How we make it interesting? I can throw an opinion about that, and I think that we should or we need to do some research before doing our presentations or demos or releases, because depending on the audience, you need to highlight different aspects of your product and service, and depending on who's watching or interacting with that version or demo, you would like to get different insights. So I think that you need to prepare in advance and have a plan of what outcomes you want to get from that particular session, and you can contrast those results depending on the different opportunities you have to show that particular product. So I think that context is really relevant when we are testing and showing the first version of our products, because in that way you can get really or helpful insights to iterate your product. So that's the way I see it. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that.
Yeah, no, I think that it's key. Just like any time you're designing a website for a product or other service, you do have to do your research on the audience and who you're meeting, and so a trade show might have a very specific type of audience. You might be wanting to key in a particular interest that is sort of like with the theme of the trade show, but you also might want to be able to see and use it as an opportunity to test certain things and to find out whether or not it's going to perhaps lead to something else or some other usage that perhaps that you might have not considered. But yeah, definitely, taking in all those factors for knowing who your audience is and being able to present for them is important.
Thank you, Andrew. Anyone else wants to add something?
I think a small thing to add is that interestingness is not just purely an outcome of what you are, but how you are in relation to all the other things that are there in the trade show. So you understand the audience, but you also understand the people around you, right? So that you can make your outcome more interesting and in the relative of the larger set of things. So yeah, just wanted to put in that add in that.
Yeah, or perhaps build on something that someone else is offering and take it to that next level.
You're right. Okay. Do we have any other questions from the audience? Let me check. I think we don't.
Audiences are students, CEOs, partners, competitors coming to the Automation Anywhere trade shows. Yeah. Yeah, that would be an awesome opportunity. If you have such a diverse group of people that are coming, you can be able to use it as a way to explore those various features and targets that you want your actual product to be addressing. Of course, a CEO is going to be looking for something a lot different than perhaps a partner or a student, or even a competitor. And how you are, able to provide for their needs and to pique their interest. That would be an awesome sort of interesting thing to me.
Thank you, Andrew.
Getting users is not easy for especially diverse groups. So take advantage of it. That's what I say.
Yeah, you need to define a strategy, to reach those audiences. And I think that's a problem that it's discussed on the Polar Bear book about fighting without aiming. So I think that if you define reinforce your strategy, you can, you can solve the problem in an easier way. So, okay, but I think we're all set. We're done. So thank you so much for your time, and let's see you next year on World IA Day 2022. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye,
Yeah.
everyone.
Thank
If-
you,
if you-
Louis and Grace.
If you want to chat with us more one-on-one or find out more about World IA or getting involved in running your own show, join us in the booth. There'll be a couple of us there, and you can chat with us one-on-one, face-to-face.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Take care.